Hello. Today, we're going to be talking about hope. Maybe right now, you're hoping that I would back away from the camera. That's a good hope. I'll back up. So, guys, today, like I said, we're going to finish up our talk on hope. And in case you were trying to remember, hope, the way we defined it, is believing that something good can come from something bad. Guys, that's a big definition. It's a great definition and a great way of looking back on the things that we've talked about for the last 4 weeks. See, we started this whole talk on hope by talking about Lazarus, okay? And if you remember, Lazarus, he'd been in the grave, and then his sisters, Mary and Martha, they called for Jesus to come because they were really good friends. And Mary and Martha, they were they were so sad. But Jesus, in fact, Mary and Martha, they say to Jesus, they say, Lord, if you had just been here, this wouldn't have happened. They didn't quite understand how powerful Jesus was or who Jesus was just yet. And so we find out that Jesus does in fact come, and he calls for Lazarus to come out of the grave, and he raises Lazarus back to life. It's an amazing thing. It's hope, believing that something good can come from something bad. The next week we talked about the triumphant entry, Jesus coming into Jerusalem and all these people being so happy. And things didn't quite go according to plan from there. The next week, last week, Dave, he caught us up on what happened, how the plan went poorly after that. That Jesus, he was taken to a really bad trial, and he was put on the cross, and he died for our sins, but he rose from the grave. Again, hope, believing that something good can come from something bad. Guys, today, what I'm going to be talking with you about is this. See, later that night, after Jesus rose from the grave, he appeared to the disciples. 10 of them were there. They were in this upper room. They had the door locked, and everything, they were just kind of meeting together. They had the door locked because they were afraid of the same thing that happened to Jesus happening to them. They didn't quite get it. And they were still trying to turn over in their heads, what was going on. And while they're there in this upper room, Jesus just kind of shows up, okay? Like the walls, the doors, they don't matter to Jesus. He just kind of, whoosh, he's there. And it's an amazing kind of thought, to think about that. They're sitting there, they're afraid, they're talking about what's going on, in the one moment, and in the very next, instant, Jesus is right there. And he says, peace be with you, which is a really common kind of a greeting. And, they are all ecstatic that he is with them. But if you were really paying attention, then you would have caught that I said that there were only 10 in the upper room. Well, there were 11 disciples after Judas left. And the one that was gone, his name was Thomas. And so the next day or so, Thomas comes back, and the other disciples, they're just like, dude, you missed it. I can't believe that you missed this. They didn't really say that. Like, they don't really accuse, Thomas of being gone. They don't really get onto him all that hard, but they are very insistent that, man, you missed out. Jesus was right here with us. And Thomas, I try to put myself in Thomas's shoes, to try and figure out, what I would have thought if I were Thomas. If your friends told you that, that something impossible happened, would you believe them? Well, Thomas, he doesn't. In fact, he says, "Nah, I'm going to need proof." Like, you guys all say that this happened, but maybe you all just dreamed at the same moment. Maybe you were all just so torn up about things that you just imagined that Jesus was there. Now, me, if this is real, if this is a real thing, I'm going to have to touch where the nails were. I'm going to have to put my hand where the spear went through Jesus' body. I'm going to have to feel things out for myself. Well, time kind of goes by, a few days pass, and the very next week, that same Sunday night, okay, or the next Sunday night, not the same Sunday night, the next Sunday night, they are gathered in this room, all 11 of them this time, and they're just kind of there, they're sharing a meal together. Again, door is locked, and Jesus appears. Same thing, Jesus is just there. And Jesus, he sees Thomas, and he says to him, Thomas, here are my hands, here's my side. And Thomas, he says this. I think this is really, really good. He says, my Lord and my God. And guys, that's a pretty amazing thing. Thomas doesn't even, the way that Scripture kind of puts it, and you can read about this in John chapter 20, but the way that Scripture puts it, it doesn't make it seem as though Thomas made it so far as to touch. Simply seeing Jesus there was enough. See, guys, here's the thing. I'm sure Thomas had a lot of questions. I'm sure all of the disciples, all the followers, I'm sure they all had questions about what was going on. I'm sure that they were all just kind of stupefied, just mystified about the events of, whether it was disciples in that first night, the events of the last 72 hours, the last 3 days, or whether it was Thomas, that very next Sunday night when he's trying to make sense of the last week. And guys, here's the thing that I want you to remember in all of this. Remember, we're talking about hope, that believing that something good can come from something bad. And guys, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have questions. Okay? It doesn't mean that at all. It's okay to have questions. Thomas had questions. But here's the thing that I want you to understand. I want you to understand that whatever happens, remember that God is bigger than your questions. We serve a God who is so, so big. And I'm not just talking about, physically big. He's bigger than our imaginations can handle. No, what I'm talking about is a God who understands where all of us are at. He understands the questions that all of us have in our minds about who He is and how much He loves us and why He did what He did. And guys, I'm here to say that wholeheartedly I believe this, that God, He is bigger than our questions. He's bigger than anything that I could want. He's bigger than anything that I could ask. And guys, that's hard to understand. But here's the thing. God, He's bigger than our hope. And that sounds strange, doesn't it? There's this verse in Isaiah, and the New Testament writers, the guys who wrote the New Testament, they quote this verse a lot, and they say, God, He's speaking through the prophet Isaiah. He's saying, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived, no mind has thought of what I have prepared for those who love me. Guys, that's who our God is. And so on that note, I hope, catch it, I hope that you guys will take the lesson from this month and you guys will take it and apply it to this whole situation. That something good can come from something bad. Because this whole virus situation, yeah, it's something bad. Believe me, I hate it. It is not good. But here's the thing. Good things can happen from something bad. Guys, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait. Neither can your small group leaders. But guys, I hope that you will draw closer to God in all of this. Maybe some of you guys need to ask questions about what does it mean to believe in God? What does it mean to believe in Jesus? What does it mean to follow him? So guys, I want to leave you with some of those questions. I hope that you'll ponder them. Have a great week. Catch us on Sunday.